Well, I'm gonna jump in. There's a lot about this text which is important for me and for us. It's kind of like a description of not just Paul's life or Paul's drive, but I think a reflection of the heart of God, because it finds itself not in some personal journal, but actually in the scriptures. We see that it reflects something about God. Something about his life, which I think is like our life. We have this same missionary life as the underground community. We are called, sent, missional people. We all have some place where he has led us to be, some people we're trying to love, who either don't know Jesus or who lack something. And there's something that grips and dictates the pace and direction of that kind of life. We could call it this apostolic life, this missionary life. And this text is a rare and beautiful look into the motivation of that kind of life, of the Apostle Paul, but I think of any apostle. This might be why it means so much to me, and probably also to you. It's a description, a picture of this apostolic life, of our life. It reflects the principle that life is built upon, the duty that drives that life, this ambition, what he calls ambition, this goal, this aim for that life, and the ultimate purpose of that life. So if you'll give me a few minutes, I want to break that down a little bit for you. I myself am convinced, he says, brothers and sisters, that you are full of goodness, filled with knowledge, competent to instruct one another. Listen, that is high praise coming from someone who has been instructing them. So this is a vote of confidence, but it's not so much a vote of confidence in them as human beings, but in God's presence inside them. What is the singular principle of the apostolic life, if not empowerment? What is the singular principle of the underground, of everything we do? Everything we do is built upon this idea that we have already been given power by God. We have already been sent by God. And when the church meddles in that, and when other human leaders meddle in that, we try to create hindrances or control mechanisms or obstacles to people actually doing what God has already said they should do, or called them to do, or sent them to do. There's actually becomes hoops that we have to jump through. People we have to impress, credentials we have to earn, which is nonsense if you understand the New Testament. Where are the credentials that the Apostle Paul had to earn? Show me. Who was he supposed to get approval from? If not the voice and the person of God, the Spirit of God, calling his name among that initial group there in Acts 13 in Antioch, and saying, you got to set him aside. He's supposed to. But not even that. That day on that road to Damascus, Jesus himself called his name and said, I will send you to the Gentiles. Jesus had already put that call on his life. No one could give it to him, and no one could take it away from him. But be assured, people sure could get in the way of it. Empowerment is this deep and theological and practical belief in the work of God in others, and we hold it. It defines us, defines our little enterprise here. We just believe that God calls his people into some fight. And actually what we're supposed to do as the leaders of God's flock or shepherds or whatever priestly duty, whatever we call ourselves, which is what Paul uses the word here, is his priestly duty. Our work of mediation is to help you. To not put hindrances, but actually to give you the tools you need, or to actually help you to thrive in that calling and that mission. And maybe even to hold your feet to the fire so that you don't back down or lose heart. These Roman Christians don't need to be sheltered, they don't need to be protected, and they don't need his personal investment in their lives to make them whole. And he has that deep belief, possibly even more than they believe it in themselves. He thinks they are powerful. He calls them good, knowledgeable, competent, and teachers themselves. Instruct each other. seek God's face, know his words, and share them with each other. You can do that. You don't need me. I'm only reminding you, he says, which we need from each other from time to time. It's not that he's saying that we're all these rogue Christians that don't need other people, that don't need other Christians, that don't need community, that don't need the body of Christ. That's not what he's saying at all. He's saying, I needed to write this letter. I needed to remind you. You needed to hear it. But the truth is you have each other. And not just that you have God to listen to God, but you actually have each other to instruct each other. So right there, even though he's saying, look, you don't need me, he's not saying you don't need each other. That you don't actually need the instruction of other believers, the accountability of other believers. That's not what he's saying. It's not about us being individualistic, but it's about us having all we need in every single place we are, all we need to learn and grow and obey. This is that deep, abiding faith he has in the Spirit of God, leading his own people into truth. Listen, Jesus is the head of his church. We said this before. It's what drives us. It's what clarifies for us our own sense of leadership. We're just servants. Jesus can lead his own church. God is sovereign. And I'm telling you, there's something just reverberating in me lately where I'm coming to realize that so little of what we actually do, what I actually do, depends on me. God is sovereign. He will accomplish his will. And whether I do a thing well or poorly, whether I show up or I don't show up, you know what? Every knee will still bow and every tongue will still one day confess that Jesus is Lord to the glory of God the Father. This is the destiny of this planet. And I'd like to be a part of it, and I want to make a call for us to be a part of it. But even if you aren't, he's going to do what he's going to do. He will have his way in this world. This is the missionary heart that both needs a love for those who have not heard and also a love for the work that God is doing inside his own people. Paul loves this church. He loves these people. He loves these Christians. He wishes he could be with them. And there's these competing ideas in this text of like, man, I see God at work in you. I want to come to you. I want to be with you. But the truth is, there are people that do not know yet. And you have the Father's love. You have the Holy Spirit. These guys don't. You tell me, who should I spend my time with? If I've got an hour, where should I give it? Yes, I love you. Yes, I want to be with you. It doesn't mean he does not care about them or the church. Guys, I want you to think about this and apply this to your friends, your family, your microchurch. You have people in your life whom you love, who love you, who you like to spend time with, who you'd rather actually spend time with. And the truth is, there are also people in your life and in your sphere and in your network who do not know the love of God, who have not experienced the liberation, the deliverance of the good news of Jesus. And the question is, if you have an hour, where should you spend it? This is the hard question that he's asking. It's not because he doesn't care about Christians or because he disdains Christians. And some of you think the way to be missional, actually the way to actually care about non-believers is to somehow deride the church or to put down Christians or to act like they're uncool or something. Listen, that's just as wrong, just as wicked. It's not that Paul is saying, look, I love to be a missionary because those Christians are all so weird and square and I want to be cool over here with the non-Christians. Guys, get that out of your head. And nobody's impressed anyway, because when you roll in over there with those non-Christians, they know you're Christian. They don't think you're cool, so no matter how you try, the point in the end is not to be cool. The point is to deliver this message that you have been given. And yes, should you come into posture that says, I'm with you and I don't judge you and I'm not above you and I want to be like you and look like you? Sure. But you don't do that by putting down your family. Empowerment is an essential ingredient to all mission. We have to be able to trust that the people who have said yes to Jesus will be looked after by Jesus so that we can keep going in mission. If not, if we didn't have this belief in the sovereignty of God and the empowerment of God to his own people, to take care of his own people, to shepherd his own people, to correct his own people, to teach his own people, then all we would ever do in our lives is make one disciple. We would go be a missionary for 1 minute or for 1 day or for 1 year, and then once we found one person that would say yes to Jesus, then for the rest of our life, we would just invest in that one person. We have to believe that we didn't save them in the first place, and we will not be their deliverance in this life. And so we teach them what we can. We love them. We show them the way of Jesus, and then we move on. Why? Because others need to know. This is the empowerment is connected to mission. If I don't believe that God can really take care of this person without my help, I won't move on and go help someone else. If I think I am the Savior and I carry some sort of messianic complex, then I'm going to stay put too long in that discipling relationship. And we do that. I'm very uneasy even of the word discipleship, because we've come to take the word discipleship, which we understand Jesus called disciples, and he's calling people to be his disciples. Amen? He's calling people to, and he said we're supposed to make other people disciples of him. But we use the word discipleship, we sometimes mean it that there are disciples. We use the word discipleship, and somehow it sort of gets changed. It morphs into this idea that, like, are you discipling people? Do you have people that are under you that are your disciples? Guys, that's not the kind of discipleship that was given to us on that mountain in Matthew 28. It was to make disciples of Jesus, not disciples of you. This is the difference between a missionary and a discipler. It's not that I want to have a bunch of students like Jesus had a bunch of students. That is not the point. It is that I want to bring students to Jesus, to learn from him the same way that I have. Because the truth is, guys, if you have a choice between being my disciple or Jesus' disciple, is there really a problem here in figuring out which person you should choose? Thank you, Mark. Exactly. I feel like there was a curse word hidden in that, but there wasn't, because that's Mark, and he's holy. It's a question of the highest good. What is the highest good? It's a triage question. When there's people that are injured or harmed or need help, need assistance, one person's bleeding out, the other person's got a bruise, it's triage. It's not that these new disciples don't need investment. Of course they do. And if you really focus in, if you really scrutinize a new believer, man, they got issues. You know what I mean? Remember when you were brand new in the faith? You barely had any idea about anything right. You were still acting just as worldly as you were before. So if you want to focus in on that person, you will be totally monopolized by that. But it's a question of triage, because there's another person that needs even more. And this is his point. This is Paul's point about Spain. Of course, I'd love to be with you, but what about those who have not heard? What about those that don't know at all? That won't have life after this life, that won't actually have life within this life. Because Jesus came not just to deliver us into eternity, but actually to give us abundant life now. And anywhere, anytime we see people coming up short of abundant life, and everywhere we look, people do not flourish. People without Jesus do not flourish. People with Jesus sometimes do not flourish. But people without him definitely do not flourish. And everywhere we see that, there is a yearning, a crying out for his name. They just don't know it. But we do. We do. I went to the Arise City pre-conference thing, which is happening in our city. Really, really, really sweet, really important dialogue about sort of urban issues and race and so on. And Dr. Carl Ellis was speaking at the pre-conference, and some of us know Carl. And I really love him, and I appreciate his heart and his theological acumen. And a question was raised to him at the end of this session that he did. It was a woman who was talking about sort of, living, she was a black woman who lived in a white neighborhood, and she was trying to figure out, how do we really do this reconciliation thing? This is this racial reconciliation question, which is a very important question. And it's very important to I think the work of God in our time. And I know Carl thinks that. deeply. Carl himself is a black man, theologian, PhD. And so he says to her something sort of unexpected. This was his response. He said, racial reconciliation is important, but it's not important enough for me. It's not a big enough issue for me. And he started going down this sort of list of all these things which we think are important today. And he said, it's not important enough. It's not big enough for me. And he said these words. He said, I want my life to matter for something more than that. And then he quoted a line from Habakkuk. He said, I want my life, I want to see the earth filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Do you want reconciliation? Yes, but I want more than that. Because even if we get justice, even if we get reconciliation, even if we get equality, but the earth is not filled with the knowledge of the glory of God as the waters cover the sea, we've come up short. It's not big enough. What are you doing with your life? Is it big enough? Is it big enough? And listen, we take on things. This is our culture, our ethos as Underground, as our little band, our community. We take on problems that are bigger than us. That's what we do. When I was in school, there was always a couple little guys. They're like short or small, and they always got in more fights than they should have got in. You know what I'm talking about? Like guys that shouldn't be in fights, but somehow are always getting in fights. And we had a word for them. We had a name for those guys. We called them scrappers. Scrappers are like small people who get in fights. So not a big person that can like win a fight, but what's going on over there? Is there something? Is that in my head? Am I hearing that? There it is. Okay, cool. Scrappers, thank you. These people that just wanted a fight, and everyone was bigger than them, but if someone was bigger that didn't bother them, they would rush in and scrap anyway. That's what we are, I think. That's what we're supposed to be. It's like we always want to take on a problem bigger than ourselves. If the problem isn't bigger than us, it isn't worthy of your life. This is the sort of apostolic principle that we are empowered by God. We bite off more than we can chew. If something is hard or impossible, we think, well, I'm going to do it anyway. That's part of our heritage. That's the spirit, I think, of this community. Apostles, apostolic people, their lives, their stories are little parables of the kingdom itself. Like a mustard seed planted that becomes the largest of all trees. This is you. Your life is a parable of the kingdom. It should be a parable of the kingdom. You should be biting off more than you could chew because you believe that God has deposited something in you, because you're powerful beyond words. Not in your own human strength, but because of who has come alongside you. Because who lives in you. The apostolic life is a life of defiance. It defies the calculations and the measurements of this world. It's defiance to our own insecurities. It's a defiance to the prince of this world who holds our wayward brothers and sisters captive. It's a defiance to the notion that everything we do has to be a success. It's a defiance to the idea that worldly success is better than a glorious failure. And that isn't true. A glorious failure is better than worldly success. It is a defiance to the sure thing or the efficient thing. It's a defiance to the law of comfort. It's a defiance to our middle-class values of security and safety and certainty. This is the missionary life. It can sometimes be birthed in the place of pride. And that when we see a word like ambition appear in this text, we worry. Is that about pride? Should I be worried about my own pride or my own ambition? But it actually also can be and should be birthed from faith in the God we serve, the gospel we preach, the inevitability of the kingdom that is to come. It's a defiance to what our eyes see now, a defiance to our own mortality. Because everybody in the end is afraid of dying. Everybody in the end is afraid of being killed. Everybody in the end is afraid of social death or afraid of career death or afraid of ultimate death. But here's the thing, guys. When your main narrative that shapes who you are is a narrative of resurrection, then we no longer fear that. We no longer fear that. We don't have to. We might, but we don't have to. Not anymore. Not ever again. To take on great, even impossible tasks is to echo with our choices, with our lives, the resurrection. It's to say that in this life there are implications for those who have been promised eternity. And we can live like we're not going to die because we aren't going to die. Simply put, if I cannot die, then I cannot lose. Now, let me be clear. You still can be killed. Now, this is not a semantic issue. This is important. You cannot die, but you can be killed. See, there are those who can kill the body. This is one of the things Jesus made a point to his missionary band that he had sent out. Don't fear those who can kill the body, he said. Because there's something about us, something in us which is eternal, which God has promised will live again. And even your body, though it is killed, will be raised again to life. See, resurrection doesn't mean you never die. It means when they kill you, you get back up. And that's a subtle but important difference. It doesn't mean that in this life we will not suffer. It doesn't mean because of resurrection no one can hurt us. Oh, on the contrary, we still hurt and bleed just like anyone else. And we can be killed, but we cannot die. And so therefore we cannot lose. Not really, not ultimately. Cannot lose. We can fail, but we cannot lose. Not if our life's work is tied to his. Guys, listen to this. What are you living for? What is your life about? Is it big enough? Because if your life and your life's work is ultimately tied to the person and the work and the mission of Jesus, you cannot lose. You might fail, but you cannot lose. Because if our life is tied to his life, then the outcome of our life is tied to the outcome of his life, which means we too will be raised, we too will be victorious, we too will be glorified. And we are, because of those truths, we are as bold as lions. This apostolic fight that we're in is rooted in the apostolic memory of the cross and of the resurrection. In fact, there is this complete inversion of the stakes for us. While most people are deeply and irrevocably motivated by self-preservation, we are not. We don't have to preserve ourselves. We can throw ourselves into the fray because of this deep, profound promise which has been made to your life. If the fray you throw yourself into is for Jesus' name or his sake, then you will live though you die. And we are instead motivated by the preservation of the life of others. Because there are some people that are still vulnerable, still susceptible to death's sting. And those people ought to become our primary priority in this world, in this life, because we will live again though we die. But there are people that we know, who you work with, who you go to school with, who you are in family with, who will live on your block, that you look at, that you know, that you talk to, that you interact with, that if they were to die, death's sting would destroy them. Because they have not come under that resurrection grace that comes only through surrender to Jesus Christ. Guys, is there something more important going on in your life than that? I defy you to show me something bigger than that calling. This is that apostolic truth. The apostolic urge is the urge to fight for those people, to do whatever must be done, to rescue, to change. The heart of the missionary is rooted in the truth of the work of the cross, which has been done for us, but remains undone for our neighbor. And how will they believe in the one in whom they have not heard, Paul said in Romans 10. How will they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And so he goes on and he says this principle of empowerment, how he sees the Roman Christians. They have the power, the authority, the good news, the Spirit of God. They have all they need. They sure don't need him, but these others need him. And then he says, this is our duty. He said, he gave me the priestly duty of proclaiming the gospel of God so that the Gentiles might become an offering acceptable to God. Listen, Gentiles, the word Gentiles just means, for you, for me, as we read it, just means everyone who does not know God, everyone who is not in the family of God. And what is he saying? He gave me the priestly duty of proclaiming the gospel of God to those that do not know him, that they might be an offering acceptable to God, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. You know, I'm going to share something with you that might give you a little picture into a bit of my weirdness. I make a lot of decisions, and some of you do too. And when you make a lot of decisions, you get sort of decision fatigue. Does anyone ever feel that? Like if you've made a lot of decisions over the course of a day, and then someone asks you something, you just sort of, it's a simple decision, like what do you want to eat? And you just can't. You know, the day has gone on too long, and you just, I don't know, and you just want someone to make the decision. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Can anyone understand? I call it decision fatigue. You just can't do it anymore. Simple decision, it's too difficult. So I'm trying to find ways, maybe it's OCD, I don't think it is. I'm trying to find ways to reduce certain decisions in my life. So I found these socks, and there's socks that actually say on them the day of the week. The day of the week goes with the sock. So I'm going to show you. I brought a pair. I'm actually wearing 7 Sunday. I just brought Wednesday, so I just want to show you. See how it says 3? So it's helpful because it's 3, but also Wednesday is there. And then if you want to look there, it also says 3. So we're good to go. So the idea is that if it's Wednesday, I don't have to guess which socks I'm supposed to wear. I wear Wednesday socks. It's amazing. I wake up and I just don't have to worry anymore about the question of which socks should I wear. It's a great plan, right? Well, here's the problem. Socks don't like to be accessible to people. They hide, they run away. So here's what's happened to me, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but it's the truth. I will get up now, and let's say it's Tuesday, and I go into my sock drawer, and I'm looking for Tuesday, and what do you know? The only socks that aren't there are Tuesday. Wednesday's there, Thursday's there, Friday's there, Sunday's there, Monday's there. And seriously, this happens to me. And now I'm stuck. Now I'm frozen. Because I have 5 clean pairs of socks that I could wear, but I can't wear them because they don't say Tuesday. So the very thing which was meant to free me has bound me. I'm now captive to the thing that it says on the sock. I did it one time. I was like, something's wrong with my brain. I have to break out of this. So I'm going to wear a different day on the day I am. And it messed me up all day long. I mean, all day I'm thinking, I'm wearing the wrong socks. These socks don't fit the day. You can't wear Wednesday on a Saturday. Something is wrong with the world. It's really caused me a lot of angst and consternation. If I can't find the right pair, the right day, I'm upset, I'm troubled. And by the way, they're sitting there, looking at me with their days, like shouting at me. So I can't pick a different pair, like just a regular pair of socks. That's the problem. It's like these guys are like, no, we belong to a certain day. Don't leave us here. So even the idea that somewhere out there is Thursday's socks and they're not being worn on Thursday is a problem for me. If anybody knows of a good counselor, just let me know later. Here's the thing. We spend a lot of time and a lot of energy, and rightly so, thinking about our calling, our specific calling. Where, God, exactly do you want me? What major should I choose? What neighborhood am I supposed to live in? Should I take this job or should I not take this job? And the truth is, we want that specificity because that level of specificity feels right. It feels like if we could just get those details right, if we could get those particulars right, being in the exact right place that we're supposed to be, talking to the exact right people at the exact right time, and we worry, we fret, we have anxiety about knowing exactly the will of God and being in exactly the right place and knowing, am I doing exactly what my best gifts are and exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and where I will see the most fruit and where I will thrive the most. And we worry so much about that we actually become bound up in those specific questions. And what was meant to actually free us and make us thrive and make us the most fruitful as we possibly can be, our sense of calling, actually gets lost because the truth is, you know what your actual calling is? You know what I have to do is just throw these socks out, put some socks in there, and just be like, are they socks? That's the only question that really matters. Are they socks? And are they clean? And if they are, then you take them and you wear them, and it doesn't matter, and you don't want to be bound up by the question of the specifics. And the truth is, I'm going to liberate you this morning because if you want to be pleasing to God, if you want to put your head on the pillow at night and feel like, did I, Lord, give my life back to you the way that I wanted to? Do I feel like I lived a life worthy of you and worthy of my calling? Then do this one thing. Preach the good news to those who have not heard. That is enough calling for us. And if you do that, wherever you are, I don't care if you're in the wrong major or the wrong job or live in the wrong neighborhood or doing the wrong thing at the job you're at, get all that wrong. But preach Jesus to those who do not know. Guess what? You please God. Your life is pleasing to God. You are fulfilling your calling. He says his duty, his primary identity and his own sense of calling is this priestly duty to proclaim the gospel to those who do not know, no matter where you are. And you need to get those other specifics right because it is a matter of fruit and effectiveness. If in the end you're kind of in the wrong place and you are sort of trying to talk, it's not going to totally work as well as it could somewhere else. But listen, you don't have to fret over that. Everybody keeps trying to think about getting the exact right thing right. And they're waiting before they do the main thing, the ultimate thing. The duty that we have, no matter where we are. Be in the wrong neighborhood. Be in the wrong job. Take the wrong major. But just make Jesus known in that place, and you will know the pleasure of God over your life. And we have lost, I think, somehow this ministry of preaching. Preaching is a lost word. It's a lost art. It's actually a negative word. It's considered, if we start saying this person was preaching at me, what do we mean? We mean they're shoving their ideas down our throat, or we mean that somehow preaching is a negative thing. Nobody wants to preach. Now, the only place that we use the word preaching in a positive light is within the body of Christ, in the church. Like what I'm doing right now might be considered preaching, and that might be positive. Because, it's okay to get up and preach to Christians. Listen, that's the exact opposite of what the word means in the New Testament. Preaching is the thing you do to non-believers. Preaching is the first thing you do when you go into a mission context is preach the gospel. And we're so twisted up about this. Preaching is often the last thing we do. We want to come into a new missionary context and build trust and friendships and relationships. Listen, that is not the way that the New Testament teaches how to do mission, how to be apostolic. The first thing you do when you walk into a new place is proclaim the kingdom of God has come. The good news of the kingdom of God has come. That's the first thing you do. The first thing you do as to decide whether or not you stay there. And instead, we've created this sort of weird, almost strange culture around mission now, which is like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to find a place, I'm going to meet these people, I'm going to blend in. And it's like, in the end, you never get around to actually saying the name of Jesus to these people. The first thing we have to do is preach. We've lost this ministry of preaching and mission. That's where it belongs. But what I'm doing, I guess, here this morning, it's not preaching, it's admonition, it's teaching. You already have heard the good news of Jesus. That has already been proclaimed to you. The kingdom is first a proposition, a possibility that is apprehended by the heart and the mind. It is a longing realized. And Jesus is both the Savior of the person and the deliverer of the kingdom. So yes, do we have to preach with words and deeds? You better believe it. Don't you dare just talk about the kingdom and be a hypocrite. Don't you dare proclaim the good news of the kingdom, but then not deliver the good news with the deeds of your life. Of course, that's the truth. But here's what we're doing. We're trying to deliver the deeds of the kingdom without the words that go with it. And that's no good either. Because in the end, your deeds, your great deeds, your concern for justice, your love for people, your incarnation into a certain place will never save another human being. Only this proclaimed truth about Jesus will. By the way, people say, well, I don't feel comfortable pushing my ideas on other people. Really? Say that to me. Come say that to my face. You don't feel comfortable sharing your ideas with other people. So you never talk about Apple versus PC, right? You don't have a preference, and you never evangelize Apple, right? Someone needs to feel some conviction right now, because you would sell me an iPad or a iPhone or something. You say it's so much better, and you explain to me 100 ways why Apple is better than PC, but you're shy when it comes to talking about Jesus. You'll tell me about your favorite movie or your favorite TV show. People do that all the time. When people love a product, they talk about that product. And there's no problem talking about how much they love this coffee, or they love this restaurant, or they love this brand. Honestly, it's not that we have a problem talking about the things we like or things we believe to other people. We do not have a problem with it. It's just that we get shy when it comes to talking about Jesus. And you tell me if you don't think that's spiritual warfare. The most important thing in your life, the most important thing that you could share with another human being, and you don't want to share it. Why? What is that other than some sort of demonic barrier there? Because the truth is, if you really believe in a certain shoe or a certain technology product, you will talk freely to another person about it. Am I wrong? Am I right? Is this hurting you? It's important to admit it. Diets. People go on a diet, they evangelize everybody about only eat carbs or don't eat carbs, or only eat fat, or only eat sugar, or only eat vegetables, or only eat insects. It's just like, when does this stop? And people really believe it. And they have said yes to it, and their life is now aligned to it, so they want other people's lives to be aligned to it. And you know what? That's human nature. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with you trying to convince me of your strange diet, that it's right for me or whatever. That's fine. But are you equally or proportionally committed to sharing the truth about Jesus with people? And what's the problem? I don't actually think people have a problem as much as we think we do. We're all nervous about it, and the truth is nobody has a problem talking about these things. We should be engaging in these dialogues freely, openly, with passion and zeal, with love for others. Years ago, there was a guy named Danny. Some of you remember Danny. And he was part of our house church. He was part of a number of house churches. Danny always kind of came around. And Danny struggled most of his life with addiction, some serious demons that he had to fight with. But he also had come to know Jesus, and his testimony, his transformed heart was never ever something he could not talk about. I mean, he would always tell you the same story. He would always tell you the same testimony. And it's like, Danny, I've known you for 6 years, and every time you see me, you tell me your testimony. But you couldn't stop him from telling you his testimony. And he was still struggling. I mean, he had a broken life. And that life continued to be a struggle and brokenness. But he never ever, I never saw him a day in his life where he was not thankful to Jesus for saving him. And that one gift that we were able to give him, that one gift of Jesus, of a relationship with Jesus, changed everything about him. The struggles didn't go away. The brokenness was still there, particularly in his physical body. It was still there. But he always had that sort of love for God, and he would never stop talking about it. I remember when he was dying, and he's over there in that sort of hospice facility over there in Ybor, and he's laying on his deathbed. And I don't know what to say, but I'm sitting by his bed, and I just felt like I wanted to read Revelation 21. There's something coming, and I felt like he was closer to it than I am, this future, this kingdom, which is about to come for him. At least he's going to pass from this life into the next life, and all of these struggles, all of this brokenness in his life is about to be gone. It's about to be made whole. And I felt a certain sort of jealousy toward him as he struggled to even speak, sitting there with a ventilator. So I sat by his bed and I whispered in his ear. And then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, where the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. There was no longer any sea. I saw a holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, and I whispered, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, now the dwelling of God is with men, Danny. He will live with them. And they will be his people. And God himself will be with them and be their God. And he will wipe every tear from their eyes. And there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has come and gone. And he who was seated on the throne said, I'm making all things new. In my friendship with this man, we got him a job. We got him a place to live. We got him a bike. He loved his bike. He would always talk about his bike. We got him teeth. He had no teeth, and we got him some teeth. I feel like that was a big one. Not having teeth and then having teeth, that's a big step up. Glimpses, glimmers of the kingdom, these gestures of justice or wholeness or love or practical love, all important in explaining this love of God. But I ask you, even though we gave him a job and a bike and some teeth, all of those things were nothing. Nothing. Compared to this one relationship, this one man that we introduced him to, Jesus, who not only gave him comfort in the suffering of this life, but led him into an eternal glory, which we cannot even comprehend. What else matters? Ambition. What is our ambition? He uses this word, for it has always been my ambition to preach the gospel where Christ was not known, so that I would not be building on someone else's foundation. What is our ambition? What is your ambition? The ambition of your life. And it's a good word. It's a strong word. It's a serious word. It's a dangerous word. And what is our ambition? It is to be first. It's to get there first, or at least not last. And this looks to some people from the outside, when they look at us, it looks like invention or innovation. To be the first person to figure something out looks a little bit like innovation. The first person to do something. And that is kind of what it is. To be like the Creator, which we are created in His image. To be like the Creator, to create. It says in Genesis 1, He creates from nothing. Ex nihilo. God creates out of the nothing. Something comes to the nothing. And this is our desire too. Those of us created in His image, to be creative, to put something where there is nothing. to put light where there is darkness, to put truth where there is lies, to put hope where there is despair. This is who we are. It's not to build on someone else's foundation. You already have hope, I'm going to give you a little more hope. There's already light in here, let me turn on my little light. No! No! The urging of the Creator, the image of God inside us is to go where there is nothing. And it's not just Paul, it's not just me, it's you, it's every single person that has the breath of God blown into their lungs. It is to create where there is nothing, from nothing, into nothing. Where is there darkness? Where is there despair? Where is there someone who has not heard this one liberating, totally delivering truth? I want to be there. I want to go there. You ought to want to go there. There isn't anything else in your life that is worth more, that means more than doing something like that. The other day, I have... Sometimes I eat ramen noodles. I have good ramen noodles. I don't eat top ramen. I have these good bowls of ramen, relatively good. And so sometimes that's my lunch. And so what I like to do is take an egg, crack an egg, and put an egg in there. And so sometimes I have eggs in my little office refrigerator. But the problem is I leave for long periods of time, and I'm not sure. So the other day, I'm not sure, do eggs go bad? Like, I don't know how long do you wait on an egg. I mean, it feels, I know this is probably wrong, but it feels like an egg never goes bad. It's like has a shell around. It always looks nice and good. But I started getting nervous. I started thinking, I really wanted to put an egg in my ramen, and I thought, do eggs go bad? And when do they go bad? And how do they go bad? And it made me think of, do you remember when we were kids, we would say, especially if there was like a pool or something like that, and we were all going to go run, jump in the pool, and we had a saying, we would say, the last one in is a rotten egg. Did you ever say that? Do young people say that, or just people my age? People still say that? The last one in is a rotten egg. And that helped me because I thought, okay, there are such things as rotten eggs. Eggs can go rotten. And so I looked at the date, and it said best if used before May 3rd or something, and I thought, well, that's a month, so these are probably not good, so I got rid of the eggs. But I started thinking about that statement, that little child's phrase, the last one in is a rotten egg. I don't know where it came from. It's a weird thing to say to each other. Like, if you are the last one in the pool, you become a rotten egg. You are a rotten egg. You smell like a rotten egg. And why a rotten egg? Why not something else? I think we need to get that mentality back in the church. The people of God. I feel like that's part of the mandate of the underground. Guys, the last one in is a rotten egg. Don't be a rotten egg. And we have loads of rotten egg Christians who want to be the last one. They wait for somebody else to take the risk, somebody else to break in, somebody else to do something. And guys, we're the kid yelling, the last one in is a rotten egg. Because the kid who says that, remember Not It? Not It. Some of you are rotten eggs. You're getting on the rotten eggs edge. When you say not it, you're supposed to say not it, and the last one that doesn't say not it is it. And by the way, it's such a trick. The first kid to say not it is always going to not be it, because he started the game. You always want to be the first kid to say not it, and you want to be the first kid to say last one is a rotten egg. That's the underground. That's the apostolic life. We're running to the pool, looking back at other Christians and saying the last one in is a rotten egg. I have met some rotten egg Christians. Serious rotten egg Christians. Criticize everything, they take no risks, they don't care about anybody, they're not investing in their life, they're not surrendered their life, but they want to come and they want to be a part of things and want to be the last one in. That's not who we are. It would never be who we are. Not while I live, not while I lead. We must be the one yelling, the one screaming, come on. This is the vision of the underground. No rotten eggs. Not here. I want to be the first in because Jesus is already there. He's already out there with those people in need. He's already there. Come on, jump in. And I want to be with him. I want to be intimate with him, one who suffers love for those in need, for those who are far from him. And we can play it safe. Listen, I sometimes feel the burden, the pressure. You know, there are people that can take the little bit of money or their time or ministry or have a staff team the size of our staff team, and we could build a really attractional church. You know, there are loads of many thousands of people churches, and their egos get really big because if you just cater to people, you know, and I, by the way, something like our kids ministry and stuff, that's beautiful. It's really, our people are amazing, our parents are amazing, but we don't spend money on that. You can see it, and some of you are like, no, we know, Brian. We know. It's just not, we're not going to make the promised land and have 10,000 square feet of our building go towards an hour and a half on one day a week so that the kids can feel like they're in Disney World. We're not going to do it. And because we don't do that, we lose people. They don't stay here. They don't stay with us. We keep beating this drum of those that don't know, of the poor, of the needy, and people leave. Rotten egg Christians come and they go. They come and they go. We could be bigger. Our budget could be bigger. We could cater to people, and there is a certain kind of pressure on us to do that. But this is not who we are. And we will always have this kind of apostolic life. And so we may always be a little band, a small band. And the truth is, we are reaching many more people. People that will never come in this door because the way we've broken ourselves up is in these communities, these brave, bold missionary communities. And it's not about coming to a building or a meeting like this. It's not even that important to most of us. But there is some sort of pressure to play to what already exists instead of caring about those that do not know. That's not our way. Our ambition, somehow, is to go to those who have not heard. I kind of want to finish by talking about greatness. You know, I actually think that we were made to desire greatness, to be great. When Jesus' disciples asked him, or when they came to him and they said, how do we be great in the kingdom? He didn't rebuke the question. He didn't rebuke the desire. He didn't say, no, that's the wrong way to think, guys. How dare you? Don't try to be great. Only I am great in the kingdom. He didn't say that. He didn't say just be humble or quiet or whatever. He said, oh, you want to be great in the kingdom? Good for you. You should want to be great. Greatness is something that is available to you. He wanted them to want greatness. But this is what he said. If you want to be great, become the servant of all. So it's not that greatness isn't something we ought to aspire to or hunger for. It's just the way that we get there will look nothing like this world and its definition of greatness. 20 some years ago, I read this text and it did something to me. It changed me. It rung a note inside of me as if to say, this is what I created you for as well. Make it your ambition to preach Jesus where he is not known. Don't build on someone else's foundation. It just made sense to me. It felt like, yes, this is who I am. This is who, everything I do is supposed to be like this. And at that time, this would have been about maybe 1996, something like that, 95, I was planting an InterVarsity chapter at the University of South Florida. There was no work there, and I said yes to that assignment and planting there. And then I planted an intentional community in the inner city, and then I planted an urban project, and then planted another chapter, and then planted another campus, and then more campuses were planted, and then we moved to another city and started caring about other cities, and then another area, and then that all that planting became the underground and the underground movement, and that's gone on to other cities. This is who we are. But even those first days, when I was assigned to be a shepherd, a staff worker, a missionary leader on the campus of USF, every single day I would work out at USF Bayboro. Every single day I would go to a different campus and pray and dream about another school. And about once every week or two, I would go to the University of Tampa, and I would have lunch there with the squirrels in right along the river, just me and the squirrels, and I would just pray. I didn't know anyone there. I would just pray for that school and say, Lord, bring something here. And then I started a little, just sort of a rogue little lunchtime Bible study at HCC on Del Mabry campus. And I was still supposed to be at USF. I wasn't supposed to be anywhere else. But I couldn't help myself. My heart has always been for those places where we aren't. And I think that's our heart. I think that's your heart too. Always dreaming. There's something really important about this word ambition. In this text, it gets translated, the Greek word that gets translated ambition. In other readings, it gets translated aim, or it can be even translated strive, what I strive for. But the word itself is a beautiful word in Greek. It's philotime, and it literally means to love honor, the love of honor. This word that gets given to us or translated as ambition is actually the word love honor. What is he saying? I can't figure it out. I can't figure out if he's saying, if what the word really means is, because I love honor, like I want to stand on the victor's platform and have received honor. That's why I'm ambitious, because I want to be the one that wins. I want to be the one with the crown or the wreath or whatever. I want to be the one that gets the medal. I love honor. He has this yearning for that, for greatness even. Or I can't tell if what he really means is the love of honor for another, the love of the honor of God. That actually what he has this deep ambition and yearning for is to see God glorified, to see God honored. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's both. I think they're intertwined somehow. I think the yearning for greatness and the yearning to see God glorified in his world is the same yearning. It's that hunger for honor, the honor of God, to see God honored, and in that somehow to be ourselves honored by it, to receive the reflection of that honor. Even that song we sang this morning, something about, to your glory, for your glory. It's so strange. It doesn't make sense of it. I thought glory was for God. Actually, glorification is a promise that is made to the saints of God. That you too will one day be glorified with him. You will be glorified. This is part of our yearning and our hope. And the desire is not wrong. It is good. Let me invite up Emily. I need to finish. And some of us have this deep yearning for justice, for wholeness in the world, as do I. And that too is intertwined in this apostolic ambition, because every injustice that we see, is a cry for Jesus, for the gospel, for the kingdom that he delivers, that only he can deliver in this life and in the life to come. $23 years ago, 23 years ago, I was 20 maybe, and I took my first trip into the developing world. It was to Haiti, and actually we have a team that's about to go again to Haiti, and of course I've been back several times, many times through the years, but something will always be special about that place, that country, because it shaped me, it changed me, it opened me up, it revealed the heart of God. And so there's about 22 of us that will be going next month and doing a project there, having an encounter with God there. Some of you, I know that's in your plan. And that week, that first journey there, is really when I realized, I think, my true apostolic call. When I went there. And it was because I saw, well, of course, it was almost like sensory overload, debilitating poverty and pain. And it's more, if you've not seen or been or experienced something like that, it's more than the senses can hold. And I remember being almost threatened with feeling numb towards it because it's so emotionally difficult, so draining. And for me, there was a break. There was really two moments, but the second moment was we were heading out through Port-au-Prince, and there was a protest, as there often is. And what they'll do is sometimes they'll put tires in the street, and they'll just burn tires. And this black smoke rising from this point of protest blocking the street. And I saw, as we tried to navigate past this burning fire in the middle of the road, I saw a man's body burning in the pyre. Poverty so staggering that my young mind, I felt I had been assaulted. And when I saw that man burning, after having seen people who seemed to be forgotten, abandoned by the rest of humanity, obscured, where is God? And I simultaneously wake up to this truth and realize that God sees this place. He knows these people. He's never looked away. He's never turned his face, not for a moment, from their suffering, from their hunger, from their need. Where is God? He burns in the street. He burns in the corpse of that man. He dies again and again, and my heart broke into a million pieces. A wound was struck upon me that I knew would never heal in this life. And I knew I could never really be put back together again until this world were put back together. I knew then that day what I hope you will hear this morning, which is that I have to be the one. When something is not being done, I can do it. Ask me, Lord. I'll do it. This is the heart of Mother Teresa. She gets on that train to Calcutta the first time, and she prays that remarkable prayer when she says, Lord, give me those who no one else wants. And the world was captivated by this small woman because she prayed that prayer, that apostolic prayer. When something is not being done, ask me, Lord, and I will do it. If I belong to Him, then I belong to His purposes. And whatever plan I had for my life burned in the street that day. And good riddance, let it burn. Because now I can see magnificence and greatness in His plan for this world and His plan for me in this world. There is no greater use of a human life than to make this one known, than to see His kingdom come. And by the way, when the Maker of heaven and earth calls you, calls your name and asks, are you busy? You say, I'm going to prepare you. You say, no, not anymore. I'm available. Whatever you need. Yes, my plans, my selfish desires died that day in that country. And not in a massive material way, I have not looked back. I have died to my own will. And I have longed for the coming of that sweet justice. And I have labored imperfectly for His work to be completed in this world. But here's the thing you may not know about me. I don't think I had that much to offer to begin with. I don't think it was that great of a trade for God to trade my sort of feeble life. I never thought I was much
to begin with. But my teachers always told me, you're going to amount to nothing. Pretty sure you're not allowed to say that anymore as a teacher. But many teachers told me, you're not going to amount to anything. And I believed them. And I didn't have a problem with it. And so when God said to me, I want your life, I thought, this is the best you can do? Okay, it doesn't seem like a great deal for you. It wasn't a hard decision for me. But some of you have such promise, such poise, such a future ahead of you. You're so full of yourself, so rich with your own potential that it's harder for you. You might just be more like that rich young ruler who goes away sad because you have so much. But if you're like me, if you feel like there's not much there, and you'll give your bit, your little self, your feeble life to Him, He'll take it and use it for greatness. There is a great shadow of sin and hatred cast upon this world. And in that shadow are places and people obscured and forgotten. But God sees them, He knows them, He loves them. He loves all those who dwell in darkness. He sent His Son to die for them and to rise for them. He found you in that shadowland. He saved you from it. He brought you into His glorious light and into the kingdom of the Son that He loves. God sees, God knows, God loves, God sends. He sent His Son. He's sending you. He's sending you. He's sending you. This is our mission. This is our life. This is our conviction. This is our hope. This is our intention. This is our joy. Will you bow your heads for a second as we go to this table? I'm going to ask one thing from you this morning. One thing. One specific thing. Listen, I know that many of you have already said yes to this call. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know that you have, most of you. Some of you don't. Some of you right now are being awakened, quickened. You know you're being called into the mission of God, and that's the case. Say yes, say yes, say yes. Make that exchange right now. Say yes. But listen, the rest of you, I know you're laboring. I know you're toiling. I know you feel called and are sent and you're trying. And maybe there's ways this morning you're convicted that you could do more, say more, and that's fine. But I'm going to ask one more thing from you. Aside from just being someone who is yourself sent, I'm going to ask you, will you also join me in this work of sending? Because we're not really going to see our city transformed by the work of singularly the work of our hands. We also not just have to be sent people, but people that are sending. And I'm going to ask you, will you consider this morning, will you find one person in your life, one person you can nurture, one person you can see ambition in them and grow that ambition for the kingdom, that you could see a love for honor in them and for the world that is to come. One person. At this time next year, each one of us in this room finds one person and help that person start something, go somewhere the kingdom is not, move light into the place of darkness, that you could just see one person be sent, one new ministry started. Can you find one person to invest in? You keep doing the work that you have been sent to do, but also find someone within that work that needs to be sent, that needs to hear this same heart from Paul, from Jesus, from us. The mission of the underground, I know, is embodied in your life and in your choices, but now I'm asking you to give it away, to build with me, to continue the work you're called to, but also to call others into their work. Will you join in that? Because Paul, even though he feels that his primary calling is preaching to the Gentiles, he still writes the book of Romans. And Spain awaits. And he goes where God sends him, but he calls brothers, the sisters, the believers to go where God had sent them to. And so our memory is filled again. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus took bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it, and he said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. Eat it to remember me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for the forgiveness of sin. Drink it, all of you, to remember me. Whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." This is our work. Guys, will you come to the table again this morning with a heart that wants to proclaim? Take a minute, examine yourself. Ask him to renew that thing inside you. That thing you first felt when you said, "I'll go wherever you want me to go. Send me wherever you want to send me. Call me wherever you want to call me. And I'll talk about you. I'll sing about you. I'll say your name. I'll proclaim your death until you come." Guys, just renew that calling. Renew that commitment in your heart as you come this morning. As you take again these elements, the mystery of the body and blood of Jesus given for you. Guys, when you're ready.